Oh, hello, this is Tak Chung from Walk with Tak. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. If you have any question, please write to me at walkwithtak@gmail.com regarding this video or any other video that I have posted in the past. If you have any videos that you would like me to make, please let me know. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. In this video, I would like to demonstrate to you one of my favorite fried rice. I call it my vegetarian or meatless fried rice. Now, this fried rice has many interesting characteristics, although each time I make it slightly differently, but the main ingredient of this fried rice is cauliflower. Now, I have to tell you this story about my cousin Marge. She's a very creative cook. I remember last time I went to visit her, this quite a few years ago in Canada, she was making a fried rice. So the first thing I did remember is that she took a head of cauliflower and she just bought it from the store and she was prepping it. So of course, like most of the time when you prep cauliflower, you remove the floret from the middle part of the cauliflower. And most of the time, this is all people kept. They would not keep the stem of the fried rice because the stem of fried rice looks really tough and it's not something that you would think that you would want to use. So as I watch Marge preparing this cauliflower, I assume that she's going to use the floret to make the fried rice because she told me that she's going to make a cauliflower fried rice for that night. But I was very surprised, but actually she did not use the floret of the cauliflower. Instead, she used the stem. Now, the stem looks really tough on the surface, and I was very surprised that when she told me that that's what she's going to do. So what she did is that she simply sliced the stem into, first of all, into thin strips, and then she will cut it into small pieces. Basically, you can consider she actually diced the cauliflower stem. So when I asked her, I said, would the stem be tough? And she said, oh, no, not at all. In fact, the stem has great flavor because once you cut it up into small pieces, they will cook very readily in the fried rice. And in fact, she told me that this cauliflower fried rice is one of her favorite fried rice. Now, the fried rice is a very simple dish to cook. It's probably one of the most versatile stir-fried dish. You can almost cook it in many, many different ways. And the basic template is very simple. So once you learn and understand the template, you can cook many different versions of fried rice. Now, one of the most important things in fried rice, that at least in the Chinese version of the fried rice, is egg. Now, in here, you notice that I cook the egg directly as it is without beating it up. Now, this is a variation of how you cook a fried rice. I'm going to season the egg with my Walk with Tak basic seasoning mix, and this will give the eggs a nice umami flavor. Now, of course, you can season it with salt as well, but the basic seasoning mix work really well. And well, in here, I also add some salt because my wife really loves the egg to cook in this particular way. Now, this will actually give the egg yolk a very distinct features. In many ways, you can consider the way how to cook this egg is like you fry an egg sunny side up, except you just mix everything together. Now, the advantage of this is that you will find the egg yolk and the egg white will cook separately. And the end result is that it makes the egg much more interesting than if you just simply beat up the egg and cook it all together. Now, this is an approach that you can say is a variation of the basic template. The basic template is to fry some egg, and then you mix the egg with the rice. Now, I'm going to separate the egg because I want the egg to have the pieces more distinct. So this way, when you eat the fried rice, you will have a good way and have a distinct texture of the egg that will contrast with other food ingredients in the fried rice. Okay, the next step is to fry the rice. Now, in here, I'm going to use about somewhere between 2.5 to 3 cups of white rice. Now, this rice has been in the refrigerator for about somewhere between 24 to 48 hours. As you can see, the rice actually is pretty hot. Now, this particular rice is a jasmine rice. Jasmine is a long grain rice. It's a relatively dry rice, and they make really good fried rice. The other type of rice I often use is basmati rice. But for some people, the basmati rice might appear to be too dry. Now, to break up the fried rice, I discovered the best way is to use something called a hamburger meat smasher. This actually is a really nice tool for breaking up rice. Now, this tool actually normally is used for breaking up hamburger meat, for example, when you make spaghetti sauce or make chili. But it turned out to be a perfect tool for breaking up rice when you make the fried rice. And the nice thing is that if you use the wok spatula to break up the rice, you tend to have rice all over the place because of the rice tend to be much easier for it to spill out from the wok. Once I got the rice to fry to a certain point, the next is that I add the cauliflower, which I have prepared earlier. Now you notice that the cauliflower are in very small pieces. You probably heard about cauliflower rice. In some way, this is almost like a cauliflower rice. So in this case, we are actually making a fried rice that is in combination of the cauliflower rice together with regular rice. Now, the cauliflower requires a little bit of time to cook, but not too bad. So at this point, you notice that I have both of them together in the wok, and I've stir-fried them and cooking them together. Now, this point is important that you want to make sure that you have enough oil, because otherwise the rice might get stick. I'll always start out with just a limited amount of oil because I know I can always add more oil. You want to adjust the amount of oil just right because you don't want the rice to taste too oily. Now, you notice that nothing sticks to the bottom surface of the wok, although occasionally something might appear to be sticking. And this is where the wok spatula really come into handy because you can use it as a scraper to scrape anything that might have stick to the bottom of the wok. The next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to add some purple cabbage or red cabbage, somebody would call them. And I cut them into relatively small pieces because I want to use them mainly to increase the color texture of the dish. And of course, they also will improve the texture of the dish as well. Again, by cutting this red cabbage into small pieces, they cook much faster. They tend to be far more tender when you cook it this way. But besides, when you make a fried rice, the main goal is that to make sure all the ingredients that you put into the fried rice will match with each other. You don't want to have something that is too big, and if they're too small, you might not be able to taste them. But if they're too big, they might kind of a little bit out of place. Okay, now the dish is almost ready. Next, I'm going to add some frozen corn. Now, this corn is given to me by our neighbor, and they grow sweet corn. So each year when they have extra sweet corn, they will freeze them. And this is the best corn that I have tasted. Partly because it comes from the field. It's the type of corn that has great sweetness. And my neighbor is really great at growing them. Now, I took this corn directly out from the freezer, and I'm going to let it to thaw out in the wok. This actually, from my personal experience, is that it will preserve the quality of the corn better than if you thaw it out in advance in the microwave. In fact, the melting ice will actually provide some moisture to the fried rice. At this point, the dish is almost done. All I need to do is to make sure I break up all the corn and so that it will mix nicely with the other ingredients in the fried rice. At this point, I'm going to do a quick taste test. And everything tastes actually pretty good. But one thing I want to do, which I have very rarely done, but my wife asked me, is to add some ground black pepper. So I add a little bit ground black pepper to give the dish a more distinct flavor. Now, this is part of flavor chasing, which actually is make home cooking fun because you can make adjustments to many different ways how you like the flavor, and you can experiment with it each time. Last but not the least, I'm going to add some fresh scallions. These scallions I have always on hand, and this is the top portion of the scallion, and it not only gives a nice onion flavor, but it also provides a good visual appeal. And the lastly is that I'm going to add the egg. Now you notice that the eggs in a relatively big pieces, and in fact this is how my wife liked it. She really liked the flavor of the egg, and she liked the egg to stand out in the case of the fried rice, and that's why I did not break them up. And so now the dish is done. This fried rice is an excellent representation of using different kinds of vegetables, because clearly the cauliflower will give a very unique flavor, and because of its texture. Again, when you cook the fried rice, you can decide how long to cook it, so you can either make the texture of the cauliflower more crunchy if you cook it less time, but if you cook it longer, it will make them softer. So you can make adjustment accordingly. And of course, the purple cabbage not only give a nice visual appeal, but it also give a little bit of a crispy texture to the fried rice as well. And the sweet corn turned out to be great for this fried rice because the corn actually provide the sweetness, a natural sweetness to this dish, and it makes it a nice contrast. And of course, last but not the least is the scallions. And the star of this fried rice, at least from my wife's standpoint, is the egg. The egg is cooked in such a way that it really stands out. It is a good example of flavor chasing. And finally, I just garnish it with a little bit of oyster sauce to provide visual appeal. I post a video each day. The goal is that to help you to make home cooking as part of your daily routine using my fast cooking system. And this will allow you to use home cooking as an alternative to fast and ultra-processed food. And so if you'd like to learn more about my fast cooking system, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. So keep on cooking, and I will see you tomorrow.